Good evening, tubers. Matt and Roy back once again with a very scraggly hair. Boy, I think I really need a haircut. I'm just looking at this real quick. And yeah, it's getting to that point. Well, how is everybody doing? I see Chris Bartlett is here watching Joe Collins, Ubuntu Wizard on Linux stuff. As a new one, it is out. And he's back. Wow, we got 4 comments. Nice, nice. So, how is everybody doing tonight? It is finally raining here in Southern Virginia. We have had the longest spell of dry weather that I can remember to date, at least for the summer. Generally, we have a very wet and humid summer, but we have not seen rain here for about a month, and that is almost unheard of in this area. That being said, the rain that we're getting today, it's on and off. It's very misty rain, but you know what? We'll take whatever we can get. The only drawback to it is I can't go out and ride my bike. So I think Mom and I are going to try and walk the mall a little bit later if we have the energy. To be perfectly honest, I did go on a bike ride earlier this morning, but it wasn't as long as I would have liked. So either we're going to walk the mall later or I will try to take my bike out. But since I can't really do anything else and I don't really have any other computer work to do right now to speak of, figured we'll go ahead and do a live stream. And this is going to be a free-for-all, so I'm going to let you guys decide what you want to talk about. I don't know how many people are going to get here. It just depends on how many people we get here as to what we're going to talk about. But let's start spitballing here. While I'm waiting, I'm going to answer a few questions that I had in the comments section. Okay, here's one from Jeff. He's I think one of my new subscribers, or he changed his YouTube name. He said, if I was in your position, which I wouldn't be because I never buy American, this is in reference to what vehicle I should buy if I decide to get rid of the Chrysler Town and Country. I ditched the van. You're approaching the age and mileage where you'll probably start running into some pricey issues. Sounds like you've had very good luck so far. I wouldn't push that luck much further. I do have a question, though. You always say that you only buy American because your dad can work on them. But what's the difference about working on a domestic versus foreign, except maybe some different nuts and bolt sizes? I've never come across a mechanic that only works on one or the other. Never heard of that, to be honest. Well, that's a good question. Mainly the issue is knowledge of what to do, not specifically the tools. You're correct, Jeff, if you're watching this, saying that a lot of the tools are the same. They are, but the knowledge on how to fix them is not. And yeah, at this point, I'd probably be okay buying a foreign vehicle because I've made a lot of friends in the automotive industry through my dad, that if I really needed to get something fixed, say I, for argument's sake, bought a Toyota Prius or a Honda Accord, I could probably get most of those things fixed nowadays. I just tend to prefer to buy American vehicles. It's a personal preference with me. In years past, it was because American vehicles were designed for American-sized people. And if you know what I mean by that, bigger people. You know, when I weighed 300, 350 pounds, even fitting into something like a Honda Accord or a Toyota Camry, it was very tight for me. I would actually be very uncomfortable sitting because a lot of times those seats had the little I don't know what you call them, those little curb things that kind of supposed to cushion your back and your sides. Well, for me, I was so big that I would just spill over. And not only that, they didn't have a lot of legroom because they were generally designed for the Asian or European market. And a lot of times people there were shorter. Me being 6'2", almost 6'3", my knees in some of those vehicles, no matter how far back I put the seat, would hit the actual dashboard. So that's mainly why I had chosen to buy American vehicles. So we got 4 people here. I'm surprised. I thought it'd be a little bit more today, but you know what? It is 5 o'clock. I probably should have scheduled this an hour later, but it is what it is. Let's go and see if we can answer a few more questions here. Joe Hojas, hope I'm pronouncing that right, in response to my new ride when I did the review of my Lincoln Town Car, says, I have a 99 presidential town car with a rag top with the same features and for some reason less features, no memory seats, no Alpine package, no amp, I believe. No extra buttons on the steering wheel, no garage option, and no lights under the hood. That one's kind of strange. Yeah. When it came to this is from what I understand, when it came to the town cars, you had the executive, which was the low end one. You had the signature, which was the middle of the road, and then you had the Cartier, which was like the real high end model. Generally, if you had the Cartier, you had almost all the features. They were almost automatically included. Then when you went down to the signature series, which was the one that I have, or had, I should say, then things were more optional. Like a lot of the signatures didn't have the memory seats, they didn't have the moon roof. Some of them didn't have the upgraded stereo, like the Alpine stereo. And then when you went down from that, you had the executive or presidential series. They were basically the same thing. And that was pretty much the same thing as like the LeSabre Custom that I have now, whereas they had a few basic creature comforts that were standard, like air conditioning and maybe an AM/FM stereo cassette. But everything else was optional, like the leather seats were optional, the power seats were optional. So I think that's probably what happened with your presidential town car. Chris Bartlett, that is like a 4x4 multi-cab we bought in the Philippines. I can't drive it. I'm too tall and the clutch pushing it sideways, pushing with my foot. Yeah, and that's why being a larger person like I was most of my life, I had to buy vehicles that would fit me properly. Now that I'm much thinner, I might be able to buy some of the more exotic or foreign vehicles, but you got to remember, just because I'm not as wide as I used to be, I'm still as tall. And actually, I'm a little bit taller now that I've lost the weight. My spine isn't as compressed. When I was over 300 pounds, I was about 6'1.5", and now I'm about 6'2.5". So I actually gained about an inch in height because the weight of my front and back weren't compressing down anymore on the spine. So I just need to find a vehicle that fits me well. And I have actually driven Toyota Priuses in the past, and I really do like them. And that may be a contender if I decide to get rid of the van. Now, there is another option that I'm looking at locally. I'm not going to give too many specifics out because I don't want somebody here to jump on this vehicle before I can. But suffice to say, there is I think it's a 99 Chevy Suburban 1500. It's a two-wheel drive version. It's got about 180,000 miles on it. And it's in really good shape, like a lot better shape than my Tahoe is. You know, my Tahoe has issues with the paint, has a lot more mileage on it. This one is pretty much good to go. Everything's good to go except for the ABS wheel speed sensor, like the one on my Tahoe. And right now they're asking 2,200 or best offer. So that is definitely a contender for me, because if I do get rid of the van, I definitely want to get another vehicle that's going to be big enough to replace what I used to do with the van. The Tahoe is good, but believe it or not, square footage wise, the van can actually hold a little bit more than even my Tahoe can. So that is probably what I'd be looking for, something like that. And I do want it to be a GMT 400 vehicle. In other words, it's going to be, if it's going to be a Chevy, it's going to be that 88 to 99 range. I'm really not into getting a more modern early 2000s Suburban or Tahoe, because they went from the 5.7 liter down to the 5.3 liter Vortec, and they were not nearly as reliable. They had a lot of lifter issues and even issues with knocking after they got older, low end rod knock. So that's might be what I'm going to do, but I haven't made any decisions yet, so don't hold me to any of this. Chris Barlow goes, I got small car now. It's a Kia. Now, Kias are okay. You know, they're they're cheap cars, but they are pretty reliable. I know quite a few people that actually own Kias, and they were able to get 100,000, 150,000 miles out of them without any major repairs. Now, that being said, once you, with Kias and Hyundais and all of those cheaper Korean-made cars, once you start hitting about the 140 to 150,000 mile mark, and sometimes even a little bit earlier than that, you start running into some pretty major issues, engine, transmission problems. But the nice thing is, by that point, most of the people that own those cars are ready to get rid of them anyway. They didn't pay a lot for them to start, so they already got their money's worth out of them. And that's kind of like what my thinking was about the Tahoe. You know, I've had that now for, what, 3 or 4 months, and I only paid $1,000 for that. And in scrap value, that Tahoe is worth about $600. So there's about a $400 deficit there, where if the Tahoe died today, I'd be able to get about $600 out of it in scrap value. And the beauty part of that is I've already made back my money in utility with that vehicle. I've taken it up to New York back and forth. Mom and I have taken it around here a lot. I've used it to pick up a lot of computers. I've actually put about 2,500, almost 3,000 miles on it. So I've already got my money's worth out of that vehicle. Now, I'm hoping it's going to last me a long time. Like, I really hope I can push that to like 300,000, because it does have a rebuilt engine. But that being said, if something major went on it, if like the tranny went on it, or maybe like the rear end, the rear differential, then I would probably junk it or scrap it out, because at the end of the day, it's $1,000 vehicle with 230,000 miles on it. And it's like throwing, you might have heard the phrase throwing good money at bad. Well, I'm not going to do that with a vehicle that just isn't really worth that much to begin with. I know I'm going to get people out there that are big GMT 400 fans saying, Matt, you should keep that on the road as long as you can. Do everything possible. You know, if the tranny goes, replace it, blah, 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 blah. Well, yeah, but that's for people that have an endless supply of money. That's not me. I have to look at the utility of a vehicle. And it's never going to be a showpiece. It has paint issues. Now, the one plus about that vehicle, it really does not have any rust to speak of. So if somebody wanted to put the money into it, like to get it repainted, maybe do some work in the interior, you probably could eventually make it into a show vehicle, but it still wouldn't be worth putting that kind of money into it, because you probably have to put $4 or $5 grand into it. And after that, even if it was in that good a shape, that's probably about all it'd be worth, and maybe not even that much. Chris Bartlett asks, so did you sell all of those computers yesterday? You said you were people coming to look at them. It was funny about that, because I had said I had 2 people coming to get computers last night, and 2 people did actually come and buy them, but they weren't the second person wasn't the person I expected. So yes, I did sell 2 computers yesterday, but they weren't the 2 systems that I was really expecting to sell. But that's okay. You know what? At least I made the sales. Chipotle, hello, Matt. No rain yet in York County area. Hopefully we get a good downpour here tonight. I'm telling you, we need it so bad. It's really crazy, because I've never seen it to where we've been without rain for almost a month, and our front grass specifically is starting to die. And the way our front yard is, it's on an angle, so whenever it does rain, it really sops up the water. And if our front grass is starting to die off, then you know we're in a drought situation. So we got 7 watchers and 7 likes. Oh, I like even numbers there. So once again, this live stream is free for all. Whatever you guys and gals want to talk about is fine with me. Go ahead and ask your questions. I'm an open book, within reason, of course. I've been kind of busying myself today, getting some more computers ready from that haul that I did about almost a month ago now. It's been a lot of work, but it's been a labor of love. 7 watchers and 8 likes. Well, I'm waiting on some more comments, questions, queries. I'll see if I can answer a few more from the comment section. Brandon Brown, thrift stores, yard sales, conventions, etc. Footage of you buying stuff at those places and then what you pick up. Yeah, I have a lot of people wanting that. Garage sale finds, thrift store hauls, and I am going to be doing more of those. As well, let's see, it's October 8th right now. When we start getting towards November and December, specifically around here, is very good for garage sales. Right now, we're kind of in a lull because it's right after back to school, and mainly people are not thinking about going to garage sales or having garage sales. But within the next month or two, in our area at least, it's going to be very good for those. So stay tuned. You're going to see some more garage sale finds and thrift store hauls coming in the very near future. Chet Boulay, in Sydney in New South Wales is running out of water. They are not having much rain there. Also, Queensland. Oh wow, I didn't know that. So it's not just us. Apparently, it's Australia too, and it all goes in cycles. Because I do remember in years past when we were in a drought situation here, but it's usually never in the summer. It's usually fall or spring, and sometimes even winter. Actually, winter around here can be extremely dry at times, but never in the summer. We always have rain in the summer. This is very, very unusual. Oh, this is funny. Okay, I got one here for you. I want to go ahead and tell you guys this because this is a problem I've been running into on specifically Let Go for the most part, but also on OfferUp at times. You'll actually get people not from your area, and they'll have these accounts that don't have any feedback or anything. I give you example here. This is Matt Turner from Texas. You can kind of see it right there if I show you real quick. And I'll read to you what it says. He says, I'm interested in the computer. I'll pay with a check. That's the first red flag. And I'll add $50 extra. And once you cash the check, I will arrange for a pickup. When they want to pay extra and have somebody pick it up locally, they're not in the area, and they want to pay you by a check, that's 3 red flags. You want to be really careful when you're selling or buying on any of these platforms. Make sure that is a legit user, a legit person that wants to buy your product and they don't want to scam you. And the way you do that is on every one of these, they have some sort of feedback system. OfferUp has one of the best, in my opinion. Basically, after somebody comes in and buys a product, you as the seller and them as the buyer can rate you by stars. They can give you 1 to 5 stars, and then they can even leave a little bit of a comment in there saying why they liked you or why they didn't like you. But you want to be very careful. This has been a big, big problem with these types of apps. Not so much with the Facebook virtual yard sale, but with Let Go, OfferUp, and even Nextdoor sales to a point. So be really cautious out there. Don't let people scam you. And believe me, there are a lot of people out there that want to scam you. Pat Scanlon. Hey, Matt, what are your thoughts on 5G? Ooh, boy. Oh boy, you're going to get me started on this. Believe it or not, I actually did a live stream devoted specifically to 5G. And I'm going to go ahead and pull this up real quick because honestly, I don't remember everything that we discussed about that. But the gist of it is it all has to do with the bandwidth and the microwaves that 5G emanates. basically what it is, it's a more dense wave. So unlike 4G and 3G and all the other types of networks out there, 5G is more dangerous because it has more radiation. It's more of a dense wave. So when it goes through you, it's actually going to go through you slower than something like 4G or 3G would. So it's going to stick with you longer, and it has more radiation emanating from it. So we could very much see higher instances of cancer, cell damage in general with 5G. I wish I could find that page. Okay, here's one. This is from the FCC, and this is one that I didn't discuss last time, is the effects on the skin. The biggest concern is how the new wavelengths will affect the skin. The human body has 2 million to 4 million sweat ducts. Dr. Ben Ishai of Hebrew University, Israel, explains that our sweat ducts act like an array of helical antennas when exposed to these wavelengths. We're talking about higher wavelengths, things up into the 60 gigahertz bands, meaning that we become more conductive. The analysis of penetration depth shows that more than 90% of the transmitted power is absorbed in the epidermis and dermis layers. So, talking about not only a higher bandwidth, a more dense wave, but a wave that is going to act worse on our sweat glands. So, basically, the little ducts that remove the sweat from our body, it's going to do the opposite. The waves are going to be absorbed by that, and that's how we're going to get some of that cell damage that we were talking about. Awesome Computer says, I don't know. I don't really think 5G causes cancer. Well, only time will tell. All of this is speculative right now. This is all pretty much theoretical. They believe this is how it's going to affect the body, but it's not going to be known until many years down the road. It's just too early to tell what kind of damage this might do. But I don't like what I've been reading about this. I mean, it goes on and on here. It talks about the effects on the heart. A Russian study in 1992 found that frequencies in the 53 to 78 gigahertz range, which is what 5G is proposed to use, impact the heart rate variably, an indicator of stress in rats. Another Russian study on frogs whose skin was exposed to MMWs found the heart rates changed. So we're talking about affecting not only your skin, but your eyes and your heart, and even the immune system. Another Russian survey found effects in the 42 gigahertz microwave radiation exposure on the blood of healthy mice. It was conducted that the whole body exposed of healthy mice to low intensity EHF EMR had a profound effect on the indices of non-specific immunity. So basically, it was talking about again affecting the cells, and in this case, the immune system. So basically, we won't be able to fight off things like not only cancer, but the common cold, flu, things like that as much. So I'm not going to go any more in any more details, but you guys can read it for yourself. I'll go ahead and share this with you guys. This is what I was just reading. But it is a big concern, and there are things that you can do about it. You can still voice your opinions to your Congress people and say, we don't like this. We don't feel that the benefits outweigh the risks. You can write letters, you can write emails, though probably emails nowadays would be better than actually writing a physical letter, which probably get lost in the shuffle there. Gotta see if that's another scam. We'll find out in a minute. That's another thing. A lot of times, this is more on Craigslist than anything else, but people will, it's usually a foreign number, by the way, or an area code out of your particular area code. And what they'll do is they'll say, I want to make sure you're a real person. I've sent you a code. Call this number and enter the code. Well, in effect, what you're doing is you're actually usually activating Google Voice, and then they can take control of your phone. So that's another scam you have to be very, very careful with. Let's see if that's what this is. Oh, man, I'm good. I called this one right away. Okay. So this person said they want to buy my computer. I said, you can call me, but give me about 15 minutes. So they just sent me a message. I want to send you a code to make sure that you are real. Is that okay? The code is just to prove you are a real seller. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to write back to them and say, I'm sorry, but I'm not a real person. I'm out of sight. And of course, they're going to know that I'm on to them, so they'll probably not message me again. But sometimes it's fun to play with the scammers. Eric goes, I apparently got the notification but missed it. Eric, you are a trooper. You know what? I'm not worried about it. If you miss one or two, believe me, I've missed a lot of yours. I try not to, but we all get busy. It's all good. Pat Scanlon goes, download a movie in 30 seconds but die of cancer. I mean, that's pretty much the gist of it. We just don't know the ultimate effects that 5G is going to have. I mean, it's a microwave. And at those higher frequencies, I mean, heck, some people think that ever since cell phones came out, and we're talking about first and second generations, they were doing damage. So you just don't know. The person just wrote back, okay. I love messing with scammers. Of course, now I'm going to block their number, but it's fun sometimes. And that's the thing. People always want to scam you. And I've never went so far as to find out how far they're willing to go. I know there are other YouTubers out there that'll actually play with them. A lot of times what they'll do is they'll say, like, I'll send you a check or a money order for usually $100 or $200 more than what you're asking for. And then you send them the product once you get the money order. And then, of course, about a week or two later, after it clears, it's a bogus money order. You're out all that money, not only the money for the item, but the money you spent to ship the item. So only deal locally. That's my best advice to you when dealing with people on these platforms. Only deal locally, in person. Meet in a public place if at all possible. That is the best way to conduct business when working with apps like LetGo, OfferUp, Facebook Marketplace, things like that. Joshua Bowman asked, do you have days where you don't sell anything? Oh, absolutely. On average, I would say I probably sell, 3 to 4 systems in a week, maybe. So the way that usually works is I'll usually sell 3 in one day and maybe 1 in another day. And then the rest of the week, I don't sell anything. And in my area, it works more like this. We're a military area, and the military gets paid on the 15th and the 30th of each month. They get paid twice a month. So I know instinctively that towards the 14th and like the 29th of each month, I better have a bunch of systems listed for sale and whatever I have listed for sale and ready, because that's when people are going to be buying. Give an example. It's October 8th right now. So this is like 8 days since they were paid. And a lot of times by this point, everybody's out of money or they're running very low on cash. So chances are I won't be selling another computer for at least 3 or 4 days. I might get some of those people that are paid bi-weekly. So maybe this Friday they'll have a paycheck and they'll be able to spend some money. But you kind of got to plan out your sales that way, at least in our area. Eric Brunhammer, I've had people ask if I can take a check. I told them yes, they can bring me the check. Then once it clears, you can come back and get the item. And I'm sure they never show up because anybody who's legitimate is not going to ask to pay by check unless maybe they're a friend of the family. Chris Bartlett's been playing around with Ubuntu. Yeah, I need to get back into Linux. I've been saying that for a long time. I just don't have a lot of extra time these days. Joshua Bowman, interesting. I usually stock up about $5,000 to $7,000 worth of MacBooks at a time, and the days I don't sell stuff, I always freak out. You know what? You can't sweat it. They're going to be slow times. Yeah, ideally, I'd love to sell at least one system a day, but it's not going to happen. And I used to freak out when I wouldn't sell something for a day or two. But now I'm just like, it'll come because it always comes. It comes as a flood usually with me, at least with me. Again, I might sell 3 or 4 systems in one day and not sell another system for 5 days. Just kind of the way it works. Eric Brunhammer, just like the joke about the vegans, how can you tell when someone uses Linux? Don't worry, we will tell you. Yeah, everybody who uses Linux likes to brag. They're like, oh, I didn't pay for my operating system. I'm using Linux. It's a free operating system, open source. Anybody can update those drivers at any time. Can be good and bad, honestly. I've had versions of Linux that work really well, like Ubuntu and Linux Mint. Then I've had ones that I really didn't like at all, like the early versions of Puppy Linux and what was the other one? Lubuntu, which is like the light version of Ubuntu. Never could get that to work properly. Awesome computers. What are the stereotypes for people using specific operating systems? Well, with Windows, it's always that Windows is full of viruses, but that's not really true anymore with Windows 10. Windows 10 is very good at keeping viruses or pretty much any kind of infections at bay. Even if you don't have antivirus installed, you can just use the Windows Defender. Not a lot of problems anymore. Like virus removal is almost non-existent. I hardly get any people coming to me to have viruses removed. And I've noticed up at Best Buy at the Geek Squad, they are really slow nowadays. I don't even know how they stay in business anymore. Now, like the best part is you can literally do anything, and the worst part is you can literally do anything talking about Linux. Joshua Bowman goes, I'll sell 5 a day and then none for 2 to 3 days. Yeah, just depends on your area. And you got to remember something. That's not all I do. YouTube is very big for me too. You got to have yourself diversified. That's the only way you're going to make it these days. Because if one income source dries up, then you have something to fall back on. Boy, I should have done a better thumbnail than that. I did it like this because it was supposed to be kind of like raindrops coming down. But I probably could have thought of something better. Awesome computers. How much does YouTube pay? I'm not going to get into specifics. It's not a lot of money. It's more of a passion for me helping you guys out, and I enjoy doing it. I'll put it this way. It took care of my car payment each month. So if you guys can figure it out from that, then you'll get the idea. Can you get sponsors? Well, I do know some people get sponsors. It's never happened to me before, even though I kind of like it too. I think it would be fun to get a video sponsored. I've just never really looked that far into it. My days are filled so much as it is. I really wouldn't have time to do it, though. Maybe I should consider making time. You never know. It's a good idea, Awesome Computers. If you guys are interested in sponsoring a video, or you know somebody out there that may be interested in sponsoring one or two of my videos, let me know. Send me a PM, or just put it down in the chat window. Chris Bartlett asks, what is the computer behind you on the floor? Oh, I'll bring it over here and show you. I don't think I wrote on this what it is. This is one of those HP systems that I got a few weeks back. This particular one is an HP Compact Pro 6300. Now, I'm going to tell you something very interesting about these computers. I got 20 of these computers in the same day. 10 of them came from a school in Virginia Beach, and they were all Core i5s, but they were the older 6200 series systems, so they did not have the USB 3.0. Then later on that day, I went over to Hampton, and I got 10 more from a gentleman that I've done business with in the past. And those were the 6300s, these computers here, which the 6300 HP Compact Pros had USB 3.0. But the problem was those newer ones all had Pentium G640s, in other words, dual core processors, versus the other ones that had the i5 2400s, which were Sandy Bridge quad core processors. So what I did, remember, I got 10 of each. I switched the CPUs. I actually took the 10 that were in the older systems, the 10 i5s that were in the 6200s, and I put those in the newer 6300s with the USB 3.0 ports that had the Pentiums. I put the Pentiums in the older systems, so I basically just swapped them around. And you got to remember, you can add value like that, especially if you're getting systems that are pretty much the same. And they all have the same socket. I believe they're LGA 1150 or 1155s. You guys will have to look it up. I don't remember which ones the Sandy Bridges were, but they were all compatible. So in effect, I switched the processors around and added value to these computers. So now, give an example. This is one of the 6300s that originally had the Pentium dual cores. But now it's rocking a Core i5 2400 Sandy Bridge quad core CPU. And if you look in the back, you can see you have the 4 USB 3.0 ports, because at this point they were still using the blue to discern that they were 3.0 ports. So these have 4 in the back and none in the front. But hey, at least you're getting 4 3.0 ports. Pat Scanlon said, that's a lot of thermal paste. Yes, it is. As a matter of fact, I had to go up to Best Buy. I went up with my bike to Best Buy. I wanted to use some of my reward zone points, and that's what I did. I used them to buy thermal paste. And I wound up buying the Insignia brand, which I believe uses some form of Arctic silver. I'm not exactly sure which form it is. But it got a good review, and it was pretty cheap. And again, you got to remember, these are not real high-end CPUs. I mean, they're i5s. They're Sandy Bridge ones, so they don't really get that hot anyway. Awesome Computers. I like to get those systems, but people in my area seem to think a computer like that is worth a couple $100. It is. Oh, it absolutely is, especially if you pair it with a good monitor, keyboard, and mouse, and throw Windows 10 on it. But give you an example, this has got a 2 terabyte conventional hard drive, 8 gigs of RAM, wireless card. I pair this with a keyboard, mouse, maybe a 22 or 24-inch monitor, and I can get $200 a piece for these all day long. So yeah, you're right on the money at $200, definitely. Again, with with a monitor, keyboard, and mouse. I mean, if you were just selling it, the computer itself, probably looking more around 160, maybe 180 on a good day. Jonathan Grindle goes, the Elite Desk are far better systems than those since had motherboards go out on them. Really? You know, I've used these quite a bit, and I've never had one of these motherboards go bad. I've had their power supplies go bad. Now, I must say, with these systems here, their weak point is their power supply because they're the slim, they're like the half size slim power line, they have power supplies, and they can get overloaded at times. But the nice thing about these is they're modular power supplies, and they can be gotten really cheap on eBay. You can get these for about $25, maybe $30 new on eBay, and they're really easy to replace. You don't even have to disconnect the cables from the drives or the motherboard. There's just like two cables you pull out from the motherboard to the power supply, pull the old power supply out, put the new one in, attach those two cables back, and you're ready to go. Awesome Computer said, I mean a 775 system with a Core 2 Duo or a Pentium dual core. Oh yeah, $200 for a system like that. That's a little pricey. A Core 2 Duo like you're talking about, or a Pentium dual core, yeah, more like $120 or $140 paired with a decent size monitor. Really? Jonathan Grindle says, starting to go back to Windows 7 over 10 since it's more stable. Yeah, it's funny. I've had a lot of people tell me they find Windows 10 very stable. I'm being one of them. I have other people tell me, like you, that Windows 10 is very unstable. I don't know. I think it just depends on the hardware that you're running Windows 10 on. I've been running it on my Dell XPS 8700 now for like the last 2 years, and I've never had an issue. Now, I installed Windows 10 on that computer back there, that Dell Inspiron 530, and that thing, it's not really reliable on there at all. As a matter of fact, that computer with Windows 10 will randomly reboot. It'll randomly power on by itself if I don't disconnect the power. So, again, I think let me move around a little bit. It really just depends on the hardware that you're running it on more than anything else. Hardware is Kaby Lake hardware, i5. Should be all right on that. Make sure that you've done all your updates. I mean, make sure that you are running the absolute latest version. So what was it, 1903 now, with all of the cumulative updates. It should be fine. But if you're if you're better with Windows 7 and you are a tech and you know how to make sure Windows 7 is secure, then yeah, stick with Windows 7. Someone said that their lightly used GT 1030 is still worth $79. Yeah, maybe in Dreamland. Yeah, I'm not sure, Jonathan Grindle. The only other thing that it could be, what's your video card? Sometimes, believe it or not, the video card can be the culprit. Pat Scalen says, I have an Inspiron 530 as well. It hates Windows 10. Yeah, for whatever reason, the Inspiron 530s did not do well with Windows 10. As a matter of fact, I think I'm probably going to be retiring that computer. Either that or I'm going to downgrade it to Windows 7. I know Eric Brunhammer said he was going to send me a Core 2 Quad Q6600 that I was going to put in that, because right now what's in there is a Core 2 Duo E8400, which is still a very, very capable card. So I don't know. I'll let you guys know what I decide to do with that. Awesome Computers asks, how much would you sell that 530 for? Well, I wouldn't sell that 530 at all, because I don't find that to be a reliable computer. If I get a computer in that is unreliable, I do one of two things. I either scrap it for parts or I use it for myself. In other words, this is actually my data backup system. So, but if you're talking about a Inspiron 530 in general with those same specs, so 8 gigs of RAM, 1 terabyte hard drive, I'd probably try to get about 120 bucks out of that. Pat Scanlon goes, honest guy, Matt. I am, but it's more than that. You want to be honest, but you want even more than that. You want to make sure that you have repeat business, and I wouldn't have repeat business if I sold computers that were garbage. And I always get repeat business. I've never had customers complain. If something does go wrong with one of my computers, I always try to make it right and at the cheapest cost possible. And if it's within 30 days, then generally I'll do the repair for free. See if, can anybody help Jonathan Grindle out with that, because this is really not my cup of tea. He's asking about upgrading a Core Duo Mac with a Core 2 Duo. I don't believe it's possible, but if anybody out there knows any better, please put that in the comments. Awesome Computers, I have a Pentium 4 system. How much would that go for? Gee, I don't know. How much is a paperweight these days? I'm actually only half kidding about that. The problem with the Pentium 4 is it's not old enough to be vintage, and it's not new enough to really be useful. It's really in that worst case scenario area. They're landfill fodder now. They're really not worth anything. Oh, excuse me. By the way, the one thing I have to say about the rain, other than the fact that we needed it to water the gardens and the grass, it has done a heck of a lot for my allergies, because without all this rain, the pollen has been building up and my allergies have gone into overdrive. Matter of fact, I went out the other day to move the Tahoe because I hadn't driven it in a few days, and I could see the green residue or the green cover on the windshield of the pollen. And when I went to turn the wipers on, you could see it pushing the pollen side to side, and it was just gross. I mean, I knew right then and there that's why my allergies have been so bad. If you want to know what a vintage computer would go for, your best indicator of that is eBay. Search your equipment on eBay, and that'll tell you generally what it's going to be worth. But again, you probably have to sell it through eBay. If you're going to sell it locally, you're probably going to get about 30 to 40% less for it. That's odd. And let me answer this real quick. I always do that. I always forget to put a question mark. Like if I'm answering somebody and I'm trying to ask them a question, I usually put a period instead of a question mark. And a lot of times Grammarly will fix that and correct it, but for some reason that isn't working right now. By the way, how many of you out there love Grammarly? I use it all the time when I'm typing online because I don't have the greatest typing skills, not like I used to. Okay, haven't been able to catch all live streams. I hope all is well. Everything's doing all right. Yeah, can't complain. And even if I did, who would listen? Well, except for you guys out there. A 20-inch or a 23-inch Samsung. Sorry about that. Trying to conduct a little business while doing this. I'm not very good at multitasking either, but I'm getting better. I'm forcing myself to do multiple things at once, and it's actually helping out a little bit, believe it or not. What do you got? 13 watchers and 10 likes. Awesome. Ah, Mark's here. I'm sure Mark's surprised he's here too, because he always tells me he can't come before 8. We're talking about a little bit of everything, Mark. Whatever you guys want to talk about, because we finally got rain today. This is going to be free for all. So whatever you guys and gals feel like talking about, asking me any questions, you have anything going on, any questions you want answered, this is the time. Just go ahead and ask away. I remember the HTC Evo 4G. That was the one. That was like the one right before the HTC Ones came out, and I actually had an HTC One X on AT&T, and I loved that phone. I actually should have kept that phone. I wound up trading it in for a Samsung Galaxy S7 Edge, but I do miss that phone a lot. Nope. I tell a lie. I traded that one in for a HTC One M8, and then I traded that in for the Galaxy S7 Edge. Chris Barlow goes, "We can hear your clock ticking there, Matt." I know, wasn't that terrible? You want to know, I was looking for a gray clock, and the only gray clock I could find was at Walmart, at least one that I could see from my bed. And wouldn't you know, it's got the loudest motor of any clock I've ever owned. Here, we'll show it to you. But hang on. A little dusty. Listen to that motor. Isn't that pathetic? I mean, it's a great clock, and to be honest with you, it actually keeps good time. It is exactly 5:54 according to the computer, and I haven't set this clock or reset this clock in probably 6 months. So, other than it being noisy, it's a pretty reliable clock. Use a cheap tablet as a clock. You know, I prefer having a quartz or an analog clock versus a digital clock because I'm used to looking at it. Sometimes I look at a digital clock and my mind just won't comprehend what the actual time is. So I just prefer having this kind of clock, although it is really, really noisy, as Chris said. Oh, excuse me. The Nokia 3310. Well, Nokia was so notable because they made some of the first cell phones that the majority of the world could afford. The 3310 wasn't an overly popular model here in the States. I think it was the 5000 series that was really popular here. The fifth, which one was it? Was it the 5100? Well, pretty much any of the 5100 series were really popular here, but I think it was the 5150 or the 5151. Yeah, the 5150 was the one that was really popular here in the United States. And I could show you a picture of it real quick. 5150 and the 5110. You guys can go ahead and look it up if you want, but I'll send you the Wikipedia link. For those of you that are not in the United States, this was one of the most popular models in the US in the early 2000s. We're talking like 2000 and maybe like 2003. Mark says, finally got my golf balls sold, all 1,625 of them. What do you think about that? That's pretty good. You don't have to tell me, but I'm sure you got a decent price for them. It's a lot of golf balls. I know that's probably because of your job, but that's pretty cool. I mean, any way you can make a little extra money is good in my book, as long as it's legal. Got to be legal. But yeah, you get the gist of it. All right, tubers, I'm going to end the live stream here. Thank you guys for coming. I'm going to try to do these on a semi-regular basis. Not going to say every day, but we'll see how it goes. Thanks to everybody who joined this. Chris Bartlett, Awesome Computers, Joshua Bowman, Chet Boulay, Eric Brunhammer, Pat Scalen, Jonathan Grindle, and Mark Covington, of course, Chris Bartlett. And if I forgot to mention anybody, I do apologize. Have a great evening. And as always, have a blessed day, everybody.